On this episode of the Dubcast, part of the Roundball Australia podcast network, Samba returns for the Wellington Phoenix before, sadly, leaving the field again as Rebekah Stott. Because, of course, it had to be Rebekah Stott to give Bev Priestman a defeat at the hands of Melbourne City. Elsewhere, Canberra made a trip down to Melbourne, getting their first away win in Melbourne since before COVID. Brisbane travelled to Adelaide and walked away with the chocolates, while the Sydney Derby, let's move on, before the Mariners defeated Newcastle up in Gosford in a game that took place 26 hours after it was supposed to. If only there was some sort of prior warning about heat, about the heat that was going to impact Gosford on Saturday. We'll get into that. We've also got the Sydney Super Cup potential video system reviews coming to the Dub Finals. We'll talk about that as well. And then just a little bit of an interview from the Sydney Super Cup launch to round out with on this episode of the Dubcast, part of the Roundball Australia podcast network. My name is Poletti. Joining me, as always, is Burke. The football delivered this week. We've got no shortage of things to talk about, which is incredible.
Yes, the football did deliver, and once again, you cannot bet on this league. You cannot. And how good is that? You cannot become a gambling addict based off of the W League, sorry, the A-League Women's, because the odds are just so bad.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane the way that these games played out. But we really should not have expected anything less, given the history of this league at all. As always, we're going to start with our big storylines. And Burke, you kick us off.
Yeah, look, I think it's got to be Canberra beating Victory for the first time in 8 years. That's kind of massive.
And Emma Rober's own goal opened the scoring in the 4th minute to give Melbourne Victory a 1-0 lead. And from there, it was basically one-way traffic. Nanako Sasaki in the 22nd to send it into halftime at 1-1. A very rare Sasha Grove goal in the 55th minute, followed by a Kayla Morrison own goal in the 77th minute to give Melbourne Victory a 3-1 win. Look, I watched this game in the background of Macarthur versus Melbourne Victory at Campbelltown, so I didn't get to see as much of it as I would have liked. But honestly, like from what I did see and what I went back and, watched a little bit later on, like this was just absolute domination by Canberra. They went to Melbourne to win, and win they did.
Yeah, they came, they hadn't even done their homework. They might have been using drones. I don't know. Sorry, I really should have thought about the timing of saying that as you were drinking something. Nearly sprayed it all over your microphone. Yeah, they had inside information. Don't quote me on that. Don't put any money on that. But they knew something. They knew something about Victory that Victory did not know about themselves. And yeah, it was kind of incredible and kind of awesome. Kind of definitely awesome. Yeah, Sasha Grove's goal was the result of some gorgeous team play there. And how good is it that she's on the score sheet back for Canberra after spending that time away with Western United? Yeah, I don't know. Victory would just kind of they were on the pitch, but they weren't on the pitch. Physically, they were on the pitch. Everything else, like mentally, spiritually, all the other ways you could be present on the pitch, they were not there. They were not there. There were glimpses of them, but they overall were not there.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? And I want to look bigger picture at Melbourne Victory here for a moment before we talk a little bit more about Canberra. They're sitting top of the table by virtue of the fact that they are one of two teams who have played. Actually, they're the only team who have played in every single round so far this season because Perth Glory had the bye this week. 3 wins, but 3 losses. They're not getting draws at the moment, and we're a bit over a quarter, sort of like that odd spot because of the length of the season between a quarter and a third of the way through the season at the moment. I guess the question I've got is, do we need to be concerned that Melbourne Victory is so hit and miss at the moment as to what games they're turning up for? Because like they had the loss to Brisbane, but that was impacted by weather. It was a 3-2 sort of game where they were in it. Brisbane were just the better team on the night. They then travelled to Wellington, suffered their first ever loss to the Wellington Phoenix, and now they've suffered their first loss to Canberra in like 8 years or whatever it is. I mean, I know the side's got injuries, but like, is there like, do we need to be concerned for the Melbourne Victory here that maybe there's something bigger at play?
I it, I think we might, because it feels very unlike Victory, this like this period of their play, I guess. Um, because yeah, last season they were toe to toe with Melbourne City for the Premier's played, and they were in the championship game. Um, but this season, even though they haven't experienced a lot of squad turnover, and the pickups that they've made have been really good. So I don't know, either something's not clicking or they all decided they were having an off day. It's one or the other.
Yeah, I mean, look, Taylor Ray only made her return last week.
Mm.
We still haven't seen Sienna Silvesca. We haven't seen Nikki Flannery so far this season after her little loan stint in Cyprus. I, I think I want to see 2 more weeks of this. If we get another 2 games in and we're looking at 4 wins, 4 losses, or 3 wins, 5 losses, no draws, and I think there might be time to hit the panic button on Melbourne Victory's chances to take out the Premier's plate. I'm not going to wipe them out of championship contention yet, just because I think they're still going to make finals, and we know that Jeff Hopkins gets his sides
They can do
clicking at the
finals.
back end of the season, and they like most years they just seem to time their run perfectly to sneak through the back end of finals and have a good crack at the championship. But yeah, I think it's sort of like, okay, I've got the finger circling on the panic button. Just how long until we hit it, I think, is probably the way to look at Victory.
Yeah, because I mean, their next 2 fixtures, they've got the original rivalry with Adelaide on this Saturday, and then they've got the Jets. They're both fixtures that should be easily winnable for them. Hopefully for them, they come out of this loss to Canberra ready to, stake their claim, I guess, again on the top of the table.
Yep, I hopefully for Melbourne Victory it is. Otherwise, I would not want to be part of that dressing room
No,
if over the next 2 weeks they've got 2 consecutive losses to make it 3 on the trot. Because I can't imagine that'll be a fun environment.
no,
Uh,
no, not even a
on
little bit.
no, on the Canberra side of things, I've had one of these like sort of hit and miss starts of the campaign. They had that comprehensive victory over Perth. They've had that comprehensive victory here. A couple of losses. There was a draw in there as well. What do we make of Canberra through 5 games?
I think they are gonna maintain themselves as a quiet threat, as they usually do, and do things like this where they just randomly spoil someone's party, just kind of because they can, just because they remembered they know how to do that. Yeah, like, I'm not scared or worried about them, I guess mostly because we don't have the same sort of long-standing high standard like we do for teams like Victory or City or Sydney. Because, it feels mean to say it, but like we all know that Canberra are like a mid-table team. They they have been for quite some time. Um, so I guess I'm not really worried about them. In fact, I'm actually kind of optimistic about their future because
They
this
play.
this win has to do something for them. If it doesn't, what a
It has
waste.
to. Yeah, no, it absolutely has to. Given that they play Sydney FC today, as of the time of recording, you may or may not have seen that game by the time you listen to this. I still don't know how I'm going to juggle my schedule to get this up, given that we're recording on Wednesday morning instead of Tuesday night. So you may have already seen that game by the time you listen to this. Sydney always struggle away in Canberra. It's not a happy hunting ground for the Sky Blues, and so I see absolutely no reason they won't continue, on the momentum that they've built from this clash. Look, my big storyline from the weekend has to be the Central Coast Mariners' comprehensive victory over the Newcastle Jets. Lauren Allen opening the scoring in the 22nd minute, then Annalise Rasmussen equalising in the 42nd before getting her brace in the 71st, Tamar Levin in the 78th, and then Eliza Hamilton on debut in the 83rd to make it 4-1. A little bit of a sour note for this game from the Mariners as their goalkeeper Sarah Langman is out for the season. She went down, I want to say it was around the 80th or so minute from memory, just completely off the ball, just went down, got her knee strapped up, played for about another 5 or so minutes before going down again and having to be substituted out of the game, with Annalie Grove coming in for her first minutes at the Mariners. Just on this, before we talk about the game itself, players I know their body better than anyone, but surely the trainer should have stepped in and they shouldn't have let Sarah Langman play out those next 5 minutes after strapping or not. Like, I looked at it straight away and I'm just like, oh yeah, this is going to be the big one. Like, I was so worried this is going to be the big one, and then she got back up and just kind of moving around for a little bit, and it's like, oh, okay, maybe it's not. And then 24 hours later, or 48 hours later, we get told it's a big one, and it's just like, okay, so my first thoughts were right. And look, I'm not a doctor. I'd be very surprised if there is anyone in Australian football media who is a doctor. If you know, you know. I mean, maybe they just needed James Hilton there on the medical staff as a goalkeeper himself, who was also a doctor of some description. Look, sometimes players just need to be protected from themselves. I think there was no reason for Sarah Langman to go back out there. The side was up 3-1 at the time. You've got a perfectly capable keeper on the bench in Annalie Grove. You're allowed 5 substitutions now across 3 windows. We know this. Make the sub. Get Sarah Langman off. Trust Annalie Grove can get through 10 minutes. If you can't trust that Annalie Grove can get through 10 minutes plus stoppages, why did you sign her in the first place? That's literally my only thought on it, is protect the players from themselves and trust the players that you actually signed to do their jobs, particularly when you're holding a 2-goal lead with 10 minutes to play.
Yeah, I have to agree with all of that. It's kind of becoming like a weird thing that we're seeing more and more of, where players are doing or having, serious injuries and then just playing anyway. Like in the
I mean, one
Euros, there's
instance that comes to mind was, besides the Euros one, right here in the dub last year, was Beth Gordon went down
yeah,
with an injury in a game against Canberra, then played another 20 minutes before eventually getting substituted off. Like, that made no sense.
didn't it just happen recently with the Wellington Phoenix? I think it was Alyssa Winner who stayed
Yes,
on, having
that's
done her ACL as well. Like, guys,
yeah, yeah.
what are we doing? And then you have Lucy Bronze with a broken leg and Leah Williamson
Play.
playing out the end of the Euros final with whatever the hell was wrong with her. I still don't think anyone's ever said what was wrong with her. But yeah, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? I, I obviously it shouldn't be happening. And yeah, I think you're completely right that sometimes the trainers and the coaching staff need to intervene because, a player's job is to play, and the only thing they're going to want to do is play. And we already know that there are plenty of people and players out there with lack of self-preservation skills. Like we need people to be the voice of reason, and
Yep.
even if that means you are the bad guy in their eyes, you kind of have to do it because you're kind of obliged to look after your staff.
Yep.
Like,
Absolutely. Like, this
what,
is
what are
the
the labor laws surrounding this in the sport?
that is a very good question. I don't know.
I feel like we might need to do something there.
Need to put an ACL clause into the next
Just
CBA.
an injury clause in general. Like, if you've done something, you need to come off. You don't need to make it worse. Do not run yourself into the ground for this. I
Yeah,
understand why you want to, but you do have a life after football and after sport
yeah,
in general. So,
this is the sort of behavior I'd expect from men's ice hockey players, and I'll like every year, because obviously for those who know, and sorry for the tangent here, but I promise it's relevant. Um, there's only so many chances that players will ever get in their NHL career to win the Stanley Cup. It is one of the greatest trophies in sport. And every year players put themselves through immense insanity to win the cup. Like, I remember the year that Vegas won it, Florida Panthers, I want to say it was Brady Tkachuk. It was one of the Tkachuks. It was either Matt or Brady. I don't remember which one plays for Florida and which one plays for Ottawa at the moment. Literally had to get his brother to dress him on the day of the game to try and play because he had broken his sternum and he still wanted to go out there and play. Like, that is, yeah, that's exactly the reaction. He didn't end up playing that game, but like, he pushed through injury after injury. And I remember in one of the Golden Knights' failed playoff runs, Alec Martinez literally played through the entire series with a broken foot. Literally, he was getting shots every single day. He was getting driven around the rinks on, like scooters and buggies and everything like that, and then going onto the ice and playing hockey just to try to win the Stanley Cup. And then, yeah, as soon as they playoff run it, it's just like, oh yeah, he broke his foot like 3 weeks ago. He's been just getting shots to get through every single game. And but this happens. It's like every single time a playoff run comes to an end for a team, it's just like, oh yeah, this player had a broken this, broken that.
I mean,
Shouldn't have been played for the cup. They're going to miss the first 3 weeks of next season.
there was also Steph Catley at the Olympics that one time where she'd broken something in her hand, I think, but she essentially had to play because this is when we had like two defenders in a dream. Um, and so I believe she, if I'm remembering correctly, she was also getting like pain management done for it, but still had to play. Oh, and there was another example that I thought of that it has just flown out of my mind. Oh, there was an Australian hockey player who literally got his finger amputated so he could go to the Olympics.
Absolute
So
insanity. We need to protect players from
let's,
themselves.
and the whole conversation about the AFL and concussions is like
Ugh,
that's a whole, well, it's the same,
that's a different kettle of fish
well,
right
it's
there.
kind of the same kettle of fish, but like it's a really big kettle. There's a
Yeah.
lot of fish in it. And also, we don't cover that sport, so you can go find
No.
someone else to listen to talk about that. But yeah, let's stop letting, you know, essentially the product, like if we want to take this from a capitalist point of view, let's stop letting the product, you know, take itself out for longer than necessary. Maybe. Like if you want
No.
to look at it like
The
that.
ideal amount of time for the product to take itself out is 3 minutes in the middle of halves with drinks breaks. That's the ideal amount of time.
With,
We're not getting into that. I
brought
might
to
lose my
you
brain if we get into that.
brought to you by Gianni Infantino, who clearly knows best.
Exactly. Let's get back to the game itself. I think we've done enough talk about injuries and player welfare as it relates to this game. This game was rescheduled by 20. Actually, speaking of player welfare, never mind. This game was rescheduled by 26 hours because of extreme heat. I seem to recall a podcast saying earlier this week that this game should have been moved long before it was. Like, this decision was made somewhere in like the 90 to 45 minute area before kickoff, to postpone the game. I mean, look, we sat here on, when did we record last week? Wednesday? Tuesday? Like
Sometime
3-4
last
days
week.
before the game, and basically said, yeah, this game needs to be postponed because it's going to be 36 degrees at kickoff. They're not going to be able to play. And sure enough, what a shock. It got postponed.
Yeah, because this was the double header as well.
Yes.
I was complaining about this to everyone who would listen and people who wouldn't listen about how stupid this situation was. Because there was also a really terrible fire in
Yes.
Gosford, well, around Gosford,
It was around the Gosford area, yes.
where like people's homes got destroyed. And they
Like,
like
Sydney FC had
I
to put a
think
post out basically advising their fans against traveling for this game, or if they were to take extra precautions because rail lines were shut because
yeah,
of this fire.
which I think they would have really known about beforehand. I don't even know if the men's game,
So the men's game went ahead
yeah,
with a 1 hour delay because, and this is the beauty of Australian weather, there was a storm.
of course, of course. But yeah,
We're on literal fire, and then there's a storm.
yeah, yeah. Who could have guessed that this was going to happen after
Not us.
seeing the weather report that is
Not us.
frequently updated? Never mind how bad the bomb's website is now. You can still see the numbers. This was stupid. Don't do this again. Don't piss me off like this again. I don't want to do it.
And finally, let's get on to the game itself. What a dominant performance here by the Mariners. This was the struggled a little bit early, but once they clicked, it was all systems go for the Mariners. And I'm genuinely concerned for the Jets this year.
Yeah. But on the Central Coast side of things, I gotta say, Rasmussen really gives me Stina Blackstenius vibes from Arsenal. If you know, you know. Like, you can call her offside 5 times, but you will not call her offside a sixth because she will score that goal. And she did. And she did. Um, yeah, it must be incredibly frustrating to be a striker. And obviously, as a striker, you would know the offside rule better than anyone, but to constantly get caught for it must be painful. So yeah, I'm impressed she didn't lose her head because I'd already lost mine watching all of the offside calls. And her goals were good. Her goals were good.
Yep.
Shout out to Heidelberg United for Tamar Levin. I know she played at Brisbane before. I don't care about that. Um, Her goal, awesome. I think she came on and scored like 3 minutes after coming on as well. And Hamilton, well, that's just excellent gear all round. That's her debut. Um, and she's only like 17. She's a homegrown talent as well, I believe. Like, that ticks all the boxes. Before anyone has a go about children being on the pitch, maybe she shouldn't have been there. But also, I think 17 is very different to 14. So
Yes, it is.
don't don't try me.
It
Um,
absolutely is.
yeah, I mean, the Jets looked good for this game prior to coming in, and they looked pretty good in the start of the game. Actually, did they? Because the goal they scored was against the run of play. Never mind. Sorry, I don't know what I'm talking about. I can't remember. I actually watched this game in full. I can't remember what I'm talking about. No, yeah, they got lucky on a fast break against the run of play. Um, for that goal by Lauren Allen, and it was a good goal. Like, it was a very nice goal. But yeah, Central Coast, they also had inside information. But to be fair, I don't think there's that much information that you kind of need on the Jets. Sorry, Jets.
Yeah, look, the Jets are not doing well
Not
this
firing on all
season, and
cylinders.
look, yeah, it's
It's a
interesting,
jet
right?
joke.
Because oh yes, of course it is. It is 10 a.m. in the morning. It is too early for puns.
Sorry. Please continue.
Don't apologize. Look, this is the Jets present an interesting dilemma
They always do.
because yeah, like they just decide that you think should be performing better than they actually do, and like I liked a lot of the recruitment that they made, and yet something's not right. Like what I will say though is that I think this game was Gossie good times for everyone except for Annalie. I think she low-key hates Gosford now. She shipped 9 goals there in 2 weeks, and I wouldn't blame her for hating Gosford at all.
Yep.
Look, I can't kind of get over this. What do you want to call it? I guess this idea of how things are playing out in for the Jets, because this shouldn't be happening and yet it is happening. Like I don't know what's going on there, and I'm afraid to find out what's going on there.
Yeah. It kind of, you saying that about the Jets is, it's like me with Perth. Like you should be better than what you are. Um, but then there's also the other thing about sports in general. Someone has to lose.
Yes, this is true.
Like they can't always be winners, and your teams will have periods of being rubbish, and your teams will have periods of being, I won't say the best, but they'll have periods of being good. Some teams will have periods of being the best, others won't. Um, and yeah, I guess that's just the joy of being emotionally invested in a team. You kind of have to suffer through it all. Um,
You ride the highs and the lows.
yeah, you don't really get a choice. You kind of have to take what you're given. But yeah, not everyone gets to be a winner, and that's not to, disparage the players, because none of them are really bad players.
Yep.
There are people that may disagree with that statement, but I stand by it. Yeah, they're not like bad players. It's just that somebody has to lose. Obviously, you don't want to lose as comprehensively as this, but you sometimes don't get a choice.
Yep. Sometimes these things are out of your control. Just 2 more things I wanted to say on this game. Hayley Johnson also made her debut for the Mariners in this game as the Northern Tigers to Central Coast Mariners pipeline continues. Long live the NPL Women's New South Wales. Then the last point I wanted to bring up was the Jets were wearing their 3rd kit for this game.
That kid's
I wasn't sold on it at first when I saw the press release, because when that came out, my immediate thought was Wellington Phoenix away strip 21-22 vibes. But seeing it in person, sorry, I didn't attend this game, but seeing it like in action, yeah, okay, it is a good kit, and I will.
It's a shame that this was the game
Its
that they
debut
won.
in the A-League Women. The only criticism I'll say of this kit is that as a jersey itself, I think it probably loses its appeal without the shorts, is what I'll say. And so for kit collectors and people like me who wear jerseys non-stop, doesn't really have the same look to it if you take the shorts away, in my opinion, which is probably a shame in terms of the overall kit itself. We'll head back down to Melbourne now. Melbourne City 1, Wellington Phoenix 0. Rebekah Stott in the 86th minute, because of course it had to be Rebekah Stott to deliver the winning blow for Melbourne City. look, Wellington played insanely well in this game.
They really
They
did.
they they got shut down quite a bit by Rebekah Stott and Taylor Otto, but they played very well outside of it. They were able to create opportunities. Um, I mean, I watched this game in full. Like Mania Elliott, Samba, Lara Wall, Pia Vlock, Marissa Vandermeer, like they all had decent enough games that you could look at it and go, yeah, on another day, Wellington probably win. But this is Melbourne City football. This is a side that through 70, 80 odd minutes had zero shots. That's not on target. That's just zero shots, period, with over 60-ish% of the ball. And, you know, they were able to stifle the limited opportunities that the Phoenix got and then walked away 1-0 victors. I mean, look, I think I've been vocal enough in the past with my concerns around Melbourne City's tactical approach to these games because, like, I go back to one classic example. Like, there's a game against the Western Sydney Wanderers. I want to say it was Unite round where they just got absolutely shut down. I believe it was the first year of Unite round, not the second year. Where they just got absolutely shut down by the Wanderers despite having, 70-odd% of the ball or whatever it was. But then you get games like this where, yeah, you've got over 60% of the ball. You can't really do anything with it until the end of the game, but you walk away victorious because you only need that one chance. And the class of the squad just absolutely shows through. So, like, it doesn't always make for good football to watch, but at the end of the day, 3 points is 3 points regardless of how you get them.
That's really what it comes down to. And also, I think it really comes down to the power of Rebekah Stott. This
Yeah,
this was the Rebekah Stott drone derby, and she won.
she was not losing this game.
She wasn't. I could feel it. Yeah, it's typical City ball. They bounce the ball around in their back line and like up the sides of the pitch, and then they don't do anything, and then they think about doing something, and then they're gonna do something, and then they go back. As frustrating as it is to watch, like you said, it works. So, unfortunately, that's the other joy of sport. Yeah, sometimes the tactics that make for a winning side aren't the most beautiful. Like, not everyone's like Barcelona doing the tiki-taki, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. As painful as it is to watch, good tactics will win you games.
Yeah, they will indeed. Even games that you probably shouldn't win, and I don't think that Melbourne City should have won
No,
this game.
probably
I
not.
think if either side should have won this game, it should have been the Wellington Phoenix.
They had a couple of really good
Yeah,
opportunities as well. So, yeah,
look,
you've got to
I
take
want
them.
to exactly look. I want to pinpoint the moment that I think this game turned, and that was when Samba went off injured. Look,
Yeah.
she came back. She started after suffering an injury. Not long after the season kicked off, she'd gone off injured again after 60 or so minutes. It looks like it's a knee. It looked like it was a knee injury of some description, but like I haven't seen any update from the Wellington Phoenix yet um, on Samba, so not too sure what's happening there. That is as of the time of recording. That I haven't seen an update there. Like I feel like that was when this game started to turn because like, there were a couple of chances that the Phoenix created after that, but they really lost her creativity in the midfield. Not in the midfield, sort of like in the
Up the front. Yeah.
in the middle of the front line. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I think from everything I've seen of Samba, I think she's been unreal. Whatever's going on at Wellington, injuries wise, not good. And
no,
you can't even be like, oh, what are they doing in training? Because all these injuries really are happening on the pitch. Because they had the two
yeah,
ACLs that happened during games. They've had this happen during a game. The last injury Samba had, I think, was also on the pitch. Like, It's not even like you can say, oh, they must be like attacking each other with hammers during training. There's no there's no one you can blame really, other than I guess the human body for being dodgy as hell. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Once we evolve ACLs out, whole new ball game, guys.
Yep.
Whole new ball game. Unfortunate that we will not be alive to see it, but it'll be a whole new ball game. If the internet still exists, I hope someone can find this clip in like 200 years when we've done that and be like, hey, she said it. She said it'd be different, and it is. Um, yeah, this sucks. This sucks because they have so many good players, and I, like I was saying in like the season preview, touting them for, like a top four finish. I don't
Yep.
know. I don't know if we're going to be able to see that. Not because they're not like they don't have the quality for it, but because
Will they have anyone
they don't have the
left?
quality for it because they're all on the freaking bench.
Yep.
And
It sucks.
my rising from the ashes dreams for this Phoenix side are withering away. Someone's standing right on the sideline with a bucket of water to pour on it. I hate it here.
Yep. I don't blame you in the slightest. Speaking of troubling injuries, and I know that is one of the worst segues I've ever come up with. Brisbane Roar 3, Adelaide 1. Tamika Yallop, she's done a hamstring again by reports. This is the same hamstring that kept her out of a couple of international windows. That took significant time for her to recover from. Oh, yeah, like I'm. This sucks.
Thumbs down. Boo. 0 out of 10. Um, yeah, and again, like it's not even. It wasn't even like a tackle. She was just overextending to reach the ball. And even when it is a tackle, you can't really blame the defender most of the time for what they've done. Um, I mean, unless people are getting put into headlocks, but that's a different story. Um, yeah, this sucks. This sucks because Tamiki Yallop at her best is really just one of the best players in the league,
Yep.
and we saw that last season. And I want us to see it again this season. I'm hoping it's not too serious. Unfortunately, it looks like it is. I guess we'll hear more when we hear more. But yeah, wishing the best for her recovery from that.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, we'll hear more when we hear more, and I think this does throw significant concerns around her potential inclusion in the Asian Cup squad. We know that Montemuro wanted Tamika Yallop to get some game time under him. She did. He liked what he saw. I took that as, basically she's a lock as long as she's fit, and then she goes and does this. Honestly, yeah, it's not good
Yep.
for Tamika Yallop. Uh, Looking at the game itself, though, Grace Kwalamu opened the scoring in the 29th minute. Bente Janssen, goal in first half stoppage time. Erin Healy to make it 2-1 in the 51st minute, followed by Bente Janssen getting her brace in the 67th minute. Has Bente Janssen been the best single signing any single side has made this season?
I've already said that. I literally said that. I think I've been saying that since week one. At least that she's the best international signing, and she may well now just be the best signing. Like, she is unreal. I'm so glad she's come to the league because we need players like this that, you know, like no one's ever heard of, kind of players. That was in inverted commas if you're just listening and not watching this. Um, to like liven up the league. It's so good. It's so good. Her goals are just so fun to watch. Um, yeah, she's she's 100% a lock for best international signing of the season, like I've been saying since round one. And yeah, I'm very high. I have very high stocks in her being best signing of the season.
We've still got quite a bit of the season to go, so we'll need to see how that plays out. Brisbane do have form of dropping off towards the
They
back end of the
do.
season, recent form as well.
Yeah.
But as long as everyone can stay fit, bar Tamika Yallop, which
Yeah.
is again very unfortunate, maybe things will work out for Brisbane Roar this season because they've got the goods. Once again, it's just can they maintain that over a 2022 round season or whatever the length of the season is. I've lost track at this point. One more game to talk about. Western Sydney Wanderers nil, Sydney FC nil. Debut for Kong Wan in this game for the Western Sydney Wanderers. And to be honest, that's all I've got. This game was not exciting. This game played
Game
out.
happened.
The
This game
Wanderers
happened.
have continue their unfortunate streak of not having scored a goal in the Sydney Derby since that 5-0 win in 2019. So whatever days that is, I've lost track of that number again, and I can't be bothered looking it up. It's their first point in like 4 years, which again was a 0-0 draw at Leichhardt in a game that they should have been sent down to 10. For some reason, hair pulling in that game by Sheridan Gallagher only got her a yellow card, not a red, which, is what it is. Actually, you know what? No, I will make one point on this game. This is the arguably the best side the Western Sydney Wanderers have had since that 5-0 win in that derby in 2019. Like this is the best team that they have had since before COVID. And they couldn't beat what is a very average Sydney FC side that, look, in my opinion, there was one side that turned up to this game wanting to win, and it was the Western Sydney Wanderers. It was not Sydney FC. Now, you can put that down to injuries, you can put that down to personnel availability, personnel decisions by the coach, whatever you want to put that down to. In my opinion, there was one side that turned up to this game with the intention of winning it, and it was the Western Sydney Wanderers. And they couldn't do it. I don't know what it's going to take for the Western Sydney Wanderers to get a win in this fixture because, as I said, this is their best side in 6 years, and they still couldn't take it to Sydney FC and get 3 points. I don't know what more they have to do at this point because, yeah, I don't know what more they have to do because I don't know if there's anything more they can do bar just completely obliterating the salary cap and taking the end of season punishments for signing like Bon Marti or like just going absolutely insane with their signings and just stacking this squad with the best talent the league has ever seen. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this game was very much a I hope you're hungry for nothing type of game. Um, there were a few moments, like you said, Western Sydney looked like they wanted it. I watched most of this game. Um, but I think, and I said this off mic before, I think the only thing that kind of let them down was the inexperience in their front line because they had a couple of really good shots on goal from some of their very, very young players that some of them really don't have that much experience at all in the A Leagues. Obviously, they've got a lot in the NPL, but it is two different things we're talking about here. And yeah, the choices that were made in front of goal weren't the best ones that they could have. Like they were the correct decision. When you're in front of goal, shoot. But they didn't execute them the best way that they could have. Um, but yeah, I think this overall was actually a very good performance by Western Sydney. Yeah, Sydney looked flat. Thank God for Robertson in goal for them because she really kept this a 0-0 draw for them. But yeah, Sydney, like I said, Was I saying it here? Was I saying it on the other podcast? Whatever. I was saying it somewhere about how I don't believe Sydney are back, and I think this proves my point.
Yeah, I can't see anything based on this game to refute that claim. Last thing I want to touch on that's Wanderers related before we move on to the rest of what we need to talk about. There's been rumours going around, reports, something or other. I look personally, I haven't seen these, but apparently enough people have seen it that it's a thing. Chloe Berryhill to sign with the Western Sydney Wanderers. First of all, do you believe that that could happen? And two, if it does she improve this squad? And who drops out?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know because I have no idea what form she's in because she's off playing for some random team in Italy. Um, she does bring obviously a lot of experience and a lot of seniority with her. She's not, she's never going to be considered a bad signing in Australia. Um, but yeah, I don't know who they'd drop for her. No, I really couldn't say.
Fair enough. But I guess this is more of just a watch this space to see what
Yeah.
happens with the Western Sydney Wanderers and any potential signing of Chloe Berryhill. It was announced on Monday that the Sydney Super Cup is returning to Sydney in 2026. Chelsea men, Tottenham men, Western Sydney Wanderers and Sydney FC men's sides all playing each other. But as part of this announcement, Chelsea women's side will be coming to face an A-League All-Stars women squad that will take place on August 12th in Sydney, and that's what we're going to focus on here in particular. This is going to be a pre-season game for Chelsea, but this game's taking place in the off-season for the A-League women. Depending on what happens with the CBA, like maybe it's pre-season as well, maybe all of the potential players participating in this game are ramping up for finals with their NPL women's sides. I only see this going one way, and I see this being I'm trying to be positive about it, but this is going to be an absolute disaster.
Yeah, yeah, because depending on how the CBA talks go, there could even be a strike,
Yeah,
which,
I'm genuinely trying to be positive about this because I think it will be good for football in this country.
oh yeah,
And I look, you can talk about the idea of a sugar hit and a little shot in the arm or anything like that we constantly seem to be chasing in Australian football. Like the carrot that hangs in front of the donkey is constantly chasing the carrot, or it's getting poked with a stick, right? Like we're constantly chasing that carrot, but we know that people turn up for the Matildas in this country, and like I see it all the time on social media. It's all these Matildas fans who are like, oh, what's Kyra Cooney Cross doing? What's Ellie Carpenter doing? What's Sam Kerr doing? Caitlin Ford, Steph Catley, etc., etc., etc. But they don't talk about the local game, and much like when the A-League All-Stars side faced Barcelona a few years ago, and I don't remember which player it was that had that breakout game. It might have been Garang Kual in that game. I'm not
ooh,
too
maybe.
sure off the top of my head. Like, I saw people following Garang in the A-League after that. Maybe this is just how we get people interested in the A-League women competition. Is they see someone have a standout performance in an All-Star game, send Ellie Carpenter to the absolute cleaners and just be like, I'm going to follow this player now. Or a Kayla Morrison just absolutely obliterates Sam Kerr in defense and is just like, oh, this Kayla Morrison looks good. Maybe I should see where she plays and watch Melbourne Victory games or something like that. Like that's maybe the positive, but like I can just see this being an absolute disaster on the field just because of the timing of the game and the way the seasons are going to play out. I'm really struggling here.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's going to be very interesting to see how they're going to pull this off, considering the timing of it. Obviously, I want it to go ahead.
Yep.
I'm not stupid, even though I don't like Chelsea. Um, I would still go to this game if it goes ahead. Like I'm not stupid. Um, But yeah, unfortunately, it's another one of those things we'll hear what happens when it happens, because we can't really predict how the CBA negotiations are gonna go and whether players are even gonna be in contract at that time.
Yeah. Like,
Oh
I mean, they
God.
weren't in contract for the last A-League Women All-Star game. It was,
Oh,
they
it was like a
were,
one-off thing, wasn't it?
yeah, it was like a provision that was put in place in negotiation with the PFA and the FA and everything like that to get those players for that game because they'd already been out of contract for 3 weeks at that point.
Yeah.
So maybe something similar here.
Mm.
Um, yeah,
Unless
look,
they, do the big one with the
go on
CBA.
strike.
Well,
Maybe this is how they get what they want out of the CBA, is they threaten to strike and not sign any contracts with this game. Maybe that's how. Maybe that's how the players get what they want out of this next CBA.
I wouldn't be mad about it. And I would support any strike action. I always will.
Support your unions. Trust me, it's worth it. The last thing I want to say on this is, look, it is an A-League All-Stars team. We know these things don't necessarily always feature the best players. And given when this game is supposed to take place, presuming it goes ahead, I can't see any reason why it wouldn't. I get the feeling we're just going to get someone, a new fancy off-season recruit signing who's going to be included in this squad for marketability purposes. That's the vibe I'm getting from this. There's going to be some flashy overseas recruit who hasn't played in the A-League Women before that's just going to be shoehorned into this squad because it's marketability.
I can see that, but I do hope you're wrong.
Oh, I hope I'm wrong
Take
too,
it
but
personally.
that's what I can see.
Yeah.
Last thing on the Sydney Super Cup is at that launch event on Monday, I spoke to former Chelsea and England goalkeeper Carly Telford about the event itself. You can check out that interview on our YouTube channel. I'll put a link into the description, and you should be able to click above our heads to take you to that if you're watching this on YouTube. We'll play a little clip from that interview for you now. You finished your career with San Diego Wave with
did,
Alex
yeah.
Morgan. What was it like getting to play with Alex?
Oh, you know what it is like? We had a big rivalry. Most people, if you knew women's football, when she did the tea celebration,
Yep.
she's very famous for. That was against me in goal when she played against us. So when I first signed, that was kind of my first bit of beef with her to bring that up, is to be like, I remember you for the wrong reasons. I still lots of questions about it. And yeah, we got on like a house on fire. And you know what it is? To be in the presence of someone like that every day and see how they function, and like I think sometimes you just think people are talented, but actually when you get behind the scenes of what it's like to be in a shared dressing room with the likes of Alex Morgan, Sam Kerr, who are the best of what they do, it's completely understandable. She was the first in, last out every day. Obviously she had Charlie as a child as well, so she was mum outside of football, in football, but then also one of the best players in the world I've ever played with. But that's because she trained us hard every day. So very blessed to spend my final season with her. Good golfer as well, so we played a little golf. But yeah, she's just a great girl.
Burke, I'm going to be completely honest. When I asked the question about Alex Morgan, I was not expecting the tea celebration to be brought up completely unprompted, but I'm glad it was.
Oh, yeah. How can you not be? One of the most iconic celebrations that we've ever seen in women's football. It perseveres, unfortunately, for Carly.
It does. It does. Indeed. And the last thing we're going to touch on today, and I know that this has been brought up on other podcasts and other shows already, is this football video support system vibe that we've seen throughout the Australian Championship. We've seen it at select FIFA underage tournaments as well already. It's still very much in the trial phase. Look, I know it was flagged in a conversation that members of the media had with the Football Australia head of referees John Moss, that this could be used in the A-League Women Finals potentially, but I was part of that call. I wanted to see more of it in action before I decided to bring it up, and it was really last week that this thing started to pick up momentum around sort of like the women's football media in this country. Look, competition integrity aside, because this would be a trial for the final series only, is what it's been flagged as. I like the idea in theory, but I hate the absolute execution of it. And I will go. Said apologies. We're going to talk about men's football for a second. I want to bring up a specific incident that took place in the Australian Championship final on the weekend, which South Melbourne won by beating Marconi 2-0. Late in the first half, Marconi challenged a goal ruling. It was waved off on the field. Marconi felt that it should have been awarded to them to make it 2-1 heading into the break. They challenged it, and there was insufficient evidence to overturn the call on the field because the best camera angle they had was from a camera behind goals on a 45-degree angle that provided inconclusive evidence to whether the ball crossed the line. Now, whether you think the goal should have been awarded or not, I personally thought it should have been. I thought there was enough evidence there to overturn it, but the referee on the field thought otherwise. I don't see how this system can go ahead if you don't have conclusive enough evidence to support or overturn a call, because this system is designed for tournaments and games where there's not enough cameras to support fully fledged VAR already. I've seen this in MLS where they have cameras inside the goals. I don't know if it's been a thing since they moved to Apple TV as their broadcaster, but I remember watching MLS games on ESPN where there were cameras set up in the goal itself. I think it was sort of in the back of the net.
Yeah.
Where you had a much better view than the stationary camera set up behind the goal, away from the net. We saw the photo that came out of the 2023 Women's World Cup was that ball flying past Mary Earps from a camera that was set up inside the goal net itself. So this is possible. I mean, the AFL has cameras in their goalposts for their review system, whatever they call it, ARC, I think it is. Although how in 2025 you can't get a camera that's beyond 480p inside a goalpost is beyond me. AFL do better. But we have there's got to be a way to get a camera inside the goalpost on the line if you're going to make one of the few challenges available under this system the awarding or non-awarding of goals. I think it's red cards. And there's a couple of other things that can be penalties, and there's some other things that can be challenged, like major game-changing calls. But other than that, there's not really a lot that can be challenged, which is why it's not a fully fledged VAR system. You can't challenge throw-ins or things like that. I want to see that the technology and camera angles are in place, so that you don't end up with a situation like this in the A-League Women Grand Final. Because if I was the coach of the side that was on the wrong side of this, I wouldn't shut up about it for months. I would make sure that my name was in the headlines all off-season, talking about how we got screwed out of a Grand Final. Because if it's 1-0 in the 89th minute and that goal makes it 1-1 and we could have taken it to extra time and potentially penalties, and we get denied because there wasn't a sufficient camera angle that provided definitive evidence as to whether the ball had crossed the line or not, I'd be furious as a coach. I'd be questioning why this system's even in place if we don't have enough camera angles to support it. And so, in theory, I think it's a good idea. In reality, I think it's not going to work the way it's supposed to.
Yeah. Hard agree on that. But I think my reasoning behind not thinking it's going to work is a lot more simplistic than yours is. There aren't even enough cameras to watch the games at the women's game anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
These people are not chipping out for an in-net camera. They're not.
Yeah. No, I think that's a perfectly reasonable explanation. I mean, today a game is going ahead at 5 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon because the ground does not have sufficient broadcast lighting to meet the APL's minimum broadcast standards. Given what we know about Melbourne City, there is every chance that we're going to see a semi-final played at Casey Fields where there is not enough space, literally, to have to have more cameras set up without like taping a GoPro to like the wire fencing that surrounds the
Honestly,
that
it'd probably be
surrounds the
better if they
field.
did that.
I mean, to be fair, that's how that's personally how I would stick a camera in the goals, is just tape a GoPro as a budget option. But that's not my decision to make. Look, I don't see how this is going to work the way that people think it should work.
I would personally prefer if maybe we could just increase the quality of the refereeing, instead of spending all this money on this thing. I think it would be better spent there. But, that's just my opinion. And I know I'm asking for a lot for money to be spent on the women's game. But all you can do is ask, and all you get is ignored. So
there's a lot of places that money needs to be spent in women's football. That will do it for this episode of the Dubcast, part of the Roundball Australia podcast network. Look, a long one this week, and I think given actually about normal length, but I think if we would go into predictions, we'd spend another 20 minutes on it. And given the way the dub plays out, I'm done with predictions. To be perfectly honest, I think it's would just be a waste of our times. To be perfectly honest. Have a look at your footballing apps or the A-League's website as to where the games are going to be this week. It looks like there's going to be a couple of absolutely cracking games this weekend, kicking off with the Distance Derby on Friday night. Saturday morning, if you're in New Zealand, at 12 a.m. kickoff on Saturday morning, 10 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time in Perth. In Sydney and Melbourne, 7 p.m. local time in Perth on Friday. Chaos slot, get around it, have a look throughout the rest of the weekend as to when the games are going on. Lot to get through today, Burke, but I think we covered it all quite well.
Yeah, I think so too.
We will be back next week to review the upcoming round's action, as well as any other storylines that emerge in Australian women's football. Before Burke, my name is Poletti. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week.